Vega. He is Danny Vega MS. What's the MS stand for?
Master of Science.
Masters in Science. Did you
I
know I
had to
have
put
a
something. My name was taken.
do you, so what's your MS in?
So it's officially called Human Performance. It was the first non-research based master's program at University of Florida, but School of
Wow.
Applied Physiology. So we were, us in Texas were the first two non-research based. So I loved that, man, because it was really practical, did a lot of testing, did a lot of program design, and it got me obviously prepped for my first job as a head strength coach.
Yes, very nice. A lot of people don't realize I also have a master's degree. Mine's an MA. Let's see how good Danny is. What's my MA in?
Master of Arts. Man, is it nutrition?
I wish. In hindsight, that would have been wonderful. No, I didn't
I
give a
should.
crap
Did you
about
put this in
nutrition.
your book, man? I should remember this.
It's public policy. I'm trying to change public policy on nutrition. So yeah,
Yeah.
public policy. And yeah, it's all good. Not doing anything with it, but it's nice to say I've got an MA. So I need to change mine to jimmymore.ma. So they'll be
If
like,
anything,
Jimmy,
people will ask you, so you can tell them you have a master's, and you
yeah.
need that. You need that nowadays. If you're not an official person, you can't be trusted.
Although yes, yeah, yeah, and we'll get into that more in a minute. Although, for the longest time, I could put Jimmy Moore MA on all my books. I like just Jimmy Moore. There's something alluring about being everyman without the letters after your name. Like I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I need RD, I need MD to be taken seriously." I'm like, "No, you don't. You just need to be authentic and real with people, and people will trust you because of that." And yeah, does it give you a little more moxie? Sure. But when you establish yourself, like people like you and I have, people trust us because we've shown ourselves to be trustworthy.
I can tell you that the majority of people that I've learned from in the last 2 years have not had letters behind their name. The majority of people who are putting out trustworthy information, because unfortunately, if you go to that, you go down that track, if you know already, like the truth, it's like you're going to be battling against lies the whole time. It's really as simple as that.
Yeah, and dude, you've been right in the line of fire. I kind of zig and zag in the fire. I use a lot of code words. Let's see, pandemonium, hokey pokey, uh, 9-1 Divok. We're going to use some of that today while we talk.
Convid. I
Uh,
like Convid.
oh, convid is good. Yeah. Boasters. Instead of,
I was
yeah, we
calling
can
them
go down.
ping pongs. I was calling them ping pongs for a while. It was just a random. I said, somebody give me a name for this word, and they just said ping pong, so I used ping pong.
Yes, yes. So you kind of get around the censors that way. And it's a shame. Like you and I grew up in America. We're about the same age. You're slightly younger than I am. But we grew up in an America. We never thought what's happening right now would ever happen in America. America was the bastion of freedom and freedom of speech and being able to really articulate whatever you want to talk about. Not anymore.
No, man. It's well, Maura and I, the first day they said 2 weeks to slow the spread, we were screaming from day one. They taped up my neighborhood playground with police tape.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what is going I was like, I was in shock for the first couple of months, to be honest, man. It was, and then of course when the whole wave of, because the censorship started like in 2019, but I wasn't aware of it,
Oh,
but then when this happened, it was all.
Oh, it started long before 2019, Danny. I've been around for 18 years. They actually have been doing this on the down low for well over a decade. I noticed it
Wow.
almost a decade ago, and some of even like removing the Wikipedia pages of those of us that were cholesterol deniers, as they called us, because I wrote this book here. They put me on that list of cholesterol deniers, and they wiped out my Wikipedia page. That was circa 10 years ago. So what's funny about all this was when I first started kind of talking about it, people are like, stay in your lane, talk about keto. And I'm like, I talk about health, and this is major health. And I know here on your page, you say, I'm losing followers one truth at a time. And it's
Yeah.
because, yeah, and you speaking out, Mike Muscle, Sean Baker, there's a lot of us in this community speaking out. Why do you think there was such pushback from so many that you would think would be on the side of what we're talking about?
Well, if it's people with letters behind their name, they pushed back because number one, they probably believed the opposite. Like I know people that still buy into the cholesterol thing, for example. Like they know all this stuff, and then they're still prescribing and advocating for certain things like with diets to lower cholesterol, you know, because somehow cholesterol, you know, I know a few people, and then other people, I think, unfortunately, they're clouded by self-interest, and they probably don't even on purpose do it. But
Yeah.
you know, when it's something so deep that it affects your livelihood, I think it affects, you know, what they do, how they act.
Well, and I'm even talking about within the keto and carnivore community. I'm like, this is a ready-made thing for people like us to talk about. And like I said, this is not new. They've been lying to us about health for as long as I've been online, as long as you've been online. And so, why did we suddenly think all these people that have lied to us for so long suddenly became innocent little, oh, we're going to tell you all the truth? Why would we believe that? And of course, I hate being jaded, but it's the reality of the situation. The pharmaceutical industry has never been on the side of the patient. So why
Never.
suddenly are we trusting pharmaceutical companies to come out with a product that we're all supposed to take mandatory? Yeah, screw that.
Never, man. I mean, my dad, because I had a rough 2021. 2020 wasn't as bad. 2021 was rough for me. And you know, I was talking to my dad, and he's like, "Why don't you go back into the medical device industry?" And I left that industry at the top of my game, man. My last year, I made like 270 something. And I'll tell you, the first reason, of course, is what you just mentioned. Like, I wouldn't be able to go into a hospital without any of that. And then the second reason is now more than ever, I'm convinced that, you know, it's completely backwards. I look at it morally and ethically like it's wrong, you know? And so I think a lot of people, they decided that they wanted to stay away from it. I think if you were to ask them, they'd whisper in your ear like they'd agree with you.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of them said, you know what, I don't want to touch that. And to be honest, you know, on one end, it's smart by them because I was growing every single year
Yeah.
until 2020, and since 2020, like I'll lose. That's why I say losing followers one truth at a time, because maybe someone stumbles across my account, sees some carnivore stuff, sees some, you know, good fitness information, but then the minute I post something, which is probably going to be once a week, they're like hitting the unfollow button. But honestly, I like where I'm at now. I like being congruent. You know, I can't not be, you know?
Look, I feel like if you purport to be about health and you don't speak up about the greatest health crisis that we've ever faced in our lifetimes, I'm sorry, I'm gonna call you out. You're a fraud. You
Yeah.
have to speak up. And look, you don't have to be rah rah and be so go for the jugular and get banned and all this stuff. I actually got a strike on YouTube a couple weeks ago because I posted that video that had uh, William Fence. Let you figure
Oh,
out who that is.
yeah.
William Fence.
I like that.
Had William Fence talking about how this is over now. Basically, the oh my god variant actually ended all of this, and it was
Yeah,
him.
he's onto the climate crisis stuff. That's his next big
Well,
thing.
so yeah, that aside, he it was him making the comments. I made no commentary. I just posted that little clip of him saying that, and they gave me a strike for medical misinformation that goes against the WHO. And I'm like, it's it's William Fence that convinced the WHO to put those regulations in. So, are we going to ban William Fence or just Jimmy Moore?
It's crazy that the algorithm is just anything mentioning or if forget they don't the algorithm is as smart as you make it, you know. And so it's just looking for keywords and key people.
Yeah.
So they're just like it's so restrictive that it's not even allowing. I would assume that people posting things in, you know, in support of this are probably getting strikes too, because that's how tight the algorithm has gotten.
Yes, but you can submit a request to review it, and then a human supposedly reviews it. And I'm sure those get through. But yeah, they sure did put that, and it kept me from posting videos for a week. And I do a video podcast series like for a week, and plus daily video. Doing these ice baths right now every single day, and so it messed me up. So when I got free, I was able to like batch all like 25 or 30 videos all at one time.
Yeah,
But
I'm sure a lot of people are going back and cutting things, and cutting things out to try to get it through. But more and more, it's like a boa constrictor, it's just like tightening a little bit more. And what's happening around the world now that people are kind of like with their guard down again, we're seeing like the next step, which is like digital identity, like this whole biosecurity state. I think they're moving on to the next phase. That's what I say, because they've gotten enough compliance to where if you have a majority of people doing what you want them to do and there's a vocal minority, now you can blame that vocal minority for everything. And that's what
yeah,
we're getting now. That's what we're getting blamed for everything. They couldn't do it. I just want to go back to concerts and I just want to do this. And you guys can't do it. And it's like, well, did you see the report? Did you see how many people are dying? Like this is serious. And it's I can't explain it, man. But like that's where this whole living adjacent thing comes in. You got to live adjacent.
yes, and dude, like even with the release of Schmeiser report, I'm going to use that one. That
I like
showed
it.
all the deaths and all the deaths and everything. Like nobody's paying attention to that because of the other things happening in the world right now. There's stuff happening. Look, if you feel like you're being distracted, you are. Like,
Yep.
wake up, look at what's going on, and it's right there. And I hate it because everything has gotten politicized. Well, if you articulate these things, oh, you're just this person or you're that person. It's like, no, I'm trying to analyze what's happening as a thinker.
Yep. And I've never seen, because I went to Columbia University, so you would think that's the most progressive place in the world. And I used to get into like arguments with friends that I went to school with on political stuff, but it was amazing to see, because these people are parents now, and it's amazing to see how we found common ground on these things. Now, you obviously have to have the type of mind that you can look back and say, I was wrong on something. I personally don't
Yes.
have that problem, because like you said, we've been saying that we've been lied to for this health stuff. And so for me, it's been so many years of being like, oh man, I got this wrong, that I'm way more open to entertaining new things and new ideas that are paradigm shattering ideas. But I think when you've never gone through that, it's so much harder to take that first step. But like I said, it's been amazing to see how many different people, people that are injured, that were all for this thing, and now it's pro athletes, people like that, they've been affected and they're speaking out, but at the same time, they don't get the coverage. So unless you're really following it, you don't see just how because I think the psychology, like group psychology, people tend to hate to be off the reservation, And so if they were to see how many more people were agreeing with them, they'd be a little bit more bold, but they're not, because they're not seeing that.
And that's what makes the censorship so hard to digest. We want people to see there's alternative viewpoints that people hold simultaneously to all these others. But then when those are removed, what's left is what everybody believes. And so I'm sorry, that's indoctrination. That's propaganda.
Yeah, I have like a list of like principles that I've like taken from here, taken from there. And I always say, like, if the majority of people are saying something, or if that seems to be the prevalent idea, I automatically don't trust it, because it's probably a program, because everything nowadays, especially with the media, is used to program. Even what's going on in Europe, it's all this big program, because it's like sleight of hand, cover this hand while you do things over here. Look over here, and but I don't know. I don't, now I've made peace with the fact that I'm not gonna like go out there and change everybody's mind. But to your point, I think more people like us should at least be presenting alternatives and being like, look, I can't comment on you know, the typical, you already know about hand washing, you already know about this other crap, but why don't we talk about the importance of, you know, taking care of yourself,
Yes.
fasting, you know, cutting your carbs. I'm walking like crazy now because, you know, between the fact that things may be with all this going digital, when you have digital stuff and you can't do cash, you can kind of dictate who does what and who spends what money, who's geofenced, who can't move. And so be able to walk a lot, be able to fast for extended periods of time. And I don't think it's doom and gloom. I think it's like, I say, like, look, don't be scared, be prepared. And when you're prepared, you kind of like, they'll throw things at you, but at least you're kind of know, you kind of knew it was coming. So you're, you know, you're kind of doing your part, you know?
Dude, I will survive long after most people because I can, like, you know what? I know how to
I
mess.
know I can't mess with 19, 20 days. I can't mess with all that stuff. I mean, I'll do 3 days, but yeah, man, like imagine, I think the people have gotten so used to the convenience and being in cities and having such easy access to stuff that if they're not actively going out of their way to get uncomfortable, live austere every now and then, it's going to be a shock, man. It's going to be a big shock.
Well, they've been in a perpetual sense of fear from an artificial standpoint the last couple of years. So what happens when real fear sets in? Is there a fear overdrive? Like that's a little bit of my concern. And from the mental health perspective of things, I'm always trying to be encouraging and uplifting and inspiring in my own work because I feel like all of this, everything that we've been through, it's been a shock to the system. And that's just what they've done to us. Never mind, we all have personal lives and stuff going on there that's also stressful and also stretching your mental wits and capacity. Um, we just need to get our mind right. We need to build resilience here as well as resilience in our health more than ever.
Yeah, I love that you're doing the cold tank. I mean, that's such a great way to do it daily, getting uncomfortable. You know, I think I told you this before. It kind of sucks. Like I'm in Florida, our pipes are like really, really shallow. So like if I get a cold front like we got last night, I can have a cold shower for like 3 minutes. But usually I'll have a cold shower for about 30 seconds to a minute before it gets warm, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I try to do that as much as possible. What else? You know, supplementing, because like our environments are really toxic. You know, we live in very toxic environments. So doing stuff with supplementation. One thing that I notice is like all the stuff that's in our air. That's one of the reasons why I do the sauna every day. Like I'll do my sauna every morning to detox, and then I've been taking silica every day,
Yeah.
a little bit, half a tablespoon of silica, just to get detox from heavy metals, because there's so much crap in our atmosphere now, and I see it every day. And people send me pictures every day, and it's just like, golly, man. And it's like I don't talk about it too much because I get, you know, automatically people think, oh, you're crazy, but I'm like, everything. We're at a place where people are so apathetic that everything is out in the open now. You know, like we have congressional hearings, we have all types of documents, and it's like, you know, look at China. China just guaranteed good weather for the Olympics last year, and they did that with, you know, their geoengineering stuff. And we're doing geoengineering. And then what happens? I don't want to get too far because I get on my soapbox, but I'll say this: when you when you look at what Bill Gates when you look at what Kill Bates or William Fentz is investing in, and they're talking about this threat, and what you see is happening to crops, for example. Like they have all this junk in them, and now what's the solution? Well, we got to have seeds that are more resilient. And if we don't have these seeds, then, you know, and then what does that do? It forces out. It's basically an insult to God's creation, because it says you're incomplete unless you have this, and your crops are incomplete unless they have this. But meanwhile, they're the ones who are causing all the issues. So I agree with you. I don't spend too much time talking about the problems because it just brings despair. But at the same time, I think presenting like, look, this is what the issue is. You need to understand it. And this is how you can be proactive, and you can live in a way that is that just makes you resilient to everything, because the human body is unbelievably resilient.
A lot of people ask me, Jimmy, how do you get
such good deep sleep. Well, there's a lot of things that I do, but one of the newest things that I recently added is this upgraded magnesium from a company called Upgraded Formulas. Go to their website, upgradedformulas.com, and you can learn all about this nano technology that they use for this particular mineral of magnesium. Again, it's called Upgraded Magnesium, and it's got all the different forms of magnesium in it using the nanotechnology so it gets absorbed a lot better. Guys, I have seen my deep sleep improve by as much as 30 to 40% simply by adding in this product along with sunshine exposure, darkness in the room, cooler temperature, all of the things that I always have done. So again, upgradedformulas.com is the website. Go check them out. I feel like people get overwhelmed by the things out of their control. Look, we can't help what our government's doing. We can't help what the world is doing. We can't help anything except for yours truly and your immediate family around you. That's it. That's your sphere of influence. And so control those things that you can control. So I love what you're talking about, getting outside and walking and getting a breath of fresh air, and doing the silica for the heavy metals. I sometimes do like activated charcoal for the same
It's
reason.
another great one.
Toxins and the ice baths and red light therapy and sunshine exposure and meditation and grounding. Literally all of these practices, they're so easy. Most of them are free, and all
Yep.
you have to do is participate in them. And guys, I hope you're getting the message today. Become resilient. Live adjacent to this craziness that we're in right now, as Danny was talking about earlier, because you don't have to participate in all the nonsense that's happening.
Yeah, I don't get caught up. I definitely don't get caught up in politics because that's another huge distraction. Um, what's another thing? I think asking questions and looking where you're not supposed to look for answers, that helps you understand. I think that's really important. But like you said, I think a lot of people are hearing this, but are they doing it? Yesterday I thought it was really important because I remember recently there's this channel called, have you ever heard of this guy, Chubby Emu?
No.
So this guy is like a doctor who talks about like random things that happen in the ER. And it's just like really interesting to watch. And I watched an episode recently where he talks about a guy had a heart attack and they were able to trace it, like basically saying like he was already at risk, of course, but the change in the time, the spring forward, and that's where I got that statistics, it's like a 24% increase in heart attacks the 2 days after spring forward. And so like just what Maura and I did, because the boys slept over at their friend's house, we woke up yesterday, we went outside in the sun for an hour and a half early, and that helps, reset your circadian rhythms, because it's all this crap that you literally have to adjust yourself to what's being done to you. Like nobody could tell you why the time changed. There's no good reason for it, but now we gotta live with it. So how do we address it? That's the most important thing, is like taking action. And I think, like you said, there's all these free things that people can do. The trick is slowing down long enough to make it a part of your routine and doing it. I think that's where a lot of people, they fall short.
Yes, and creating a routine with it. Like you mentioned, I've been doing these ice baths every single day in 2022, 5 minutes a day in 32-degree temperature water. And
Whew.
it's like 70 something days now, Danny. So it's become so habitual. I don't even think about not doing it. So what they say, 21 days to build a habit. I was there pretty quick, and I've done it triple over plus that. And I feel something I'll do forever. Of course, I'm very fortunate. I have one of those nice tanks that I can get like my
Man, I looked at that thing. I'm like, you know what? I'm probably going to do the other one that's like, what is it called? The ice something? What is it called?
the
Ice
ice.
barrel? Ice barrel. Yeah, I think I'll do the ice barrel. I've been looking at the ice barrel because the Morosco, man, that thing that's not right now. But,
Yeah,
I'm sure because it automatically keeps it cool. It cleans it, right? It does all that.
it cleans it. It makes you breakfast in the morning. It's great, man. But no, on ice, yeah, it's pretty cool. And yeah, I needed something that would make me do it more often because I am a very tall guy, as you know. I'm 6'3" and I have a 4 foot tub. So I was going to Sam's Club every like 3, 4 days, getting a bunch of bags of ice to fill up in my front freezer. And then I'd be like every day dumping 20-pound bags of ice, filling up my tub, getting my legs in there and wiggling my body down in there and kind of trying to like get around, get the, it was a pain in the ass is what it was. And
Yeah,
so,
I can't do that either, dude. And I'm only 5'11", so I can't imagine you.
yeah. So when I heard there was a 6 foot Morosco Forge tank, I'm like, yes, I'm all in. And then I got to see them at a biohacking conference last year, and they're like, "Whoa, you're very broad shouldered. Let's get you a wider one." So they actually customized a wider one for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, dude, it if you can afford it someday, and the way I see it is, this is going to prevent hospital bills later.
100%. Everything that we do, I think so many people are like focused on the newest iPhone and, the newest gadget that they're throwing at you. And honestly, what we do is we used to spend money on travel too, but now travel's a little bit, especially international travel. But food, man, just spending our money on good food, on things that are going to keep us healthy. It's just like it's a whole different form of wealth, between that and having a tight knit family and all that good stuff, having good relationships. All that stuff is super important to us, man. To me, that's real wealth.
Yes, and support my local farmers market. I have one supplier that I get grass fed beef and during the winter, except once a month. They'll open one Saturday a month. So this coming up Saturday is the Saturday they open, and then they open full time starting in April. So Saturday, I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna be there early, and I'm gonna be like, you know what I want, and she does. I buy every bit of her grass fed ground beef because while the prices have gone cray cray with the inflation in regular stores, it stayed the same. It's still $8 a pound for grass-fed beef. It's getting close to that in regular stores now for the regular kind. So I get it, and I've got a deep freezer on my front porch, and I've got probably 100 pounds of meat in there from the grass-fed beef. And I also buy from a pork supplier that does pastured pork sausage. Same thing. I just load up on it, and yeah. And then when you get the better quality, you don't need to eat near as much of it, and then you intersperse some fasting in there, you could survive a long time on that.
100%. And I'm glad you brought that up because we have our local farmer and our local rancher. And I tell people, man, there's going to be a time when you wished you started that relationship, because while they can scale their production, the amount of animals that they slaughter, they can do that to a certain extent. But if it gets too saturated, they're going to have to say, sorry, existing customers only. And
Yeah.
so if you don't have that existing relationship, you're going to be out left in the cold, and you're going to be a victim of whatever
Yeah.
the next, supply chain issue is. And you're right. Like my buddy was getting his, I got one of my clients, I got him on ground bison, and he was just buying it at Costco. And he ended up going to a rancher because the Costco price ended up, he had a discount, a coupon with the rancher, and it was cheaper with the rancher than it was with Costco bison. Not to say, bison is going to be less of a risk of, all the crap that we see going on in the feed operations, but like still, man, it's amazing how, it's becoming more and more clear. The more natural you go, the more local you go. Even just supporting domestic producers that may ship it to you, because I got Central Nebraska buffalo. I got them with the relationship with my local farmer, so now he's stocking it. But I'll still buy like big packages from them, but if I need to pick something up, I just go to his place and get some. But it's nuts, man. And people are still, it's just habitual, your habits and what you're used to, and you got to break free of that, because I hate the fact that people don't change until they're forced to. And when that happens, it creates massive bottlenecks. That's where people get like nervous, and like all of a sudden there's no toilet paper. So
Oh, the woes of no toilet paper.
I know. Oh my gosh. And it's crazy how because we've been dealing with this in Florida since the 90s, but maybe the early 2000s, where every hurricane season, people still fall for it, where they're like, hurry up and go get your water bottles. And all of a sudden, people got like, a year's worth of water bottles and all this crap for things that never happen, and I'm already like, how much are they paying the news stations? How much is Publix and all these other places paying the news stations to tell them to create a run on these things, man? It's crazy.
The preppers were way ahead of the curve on all this. Everybody like
Yep.
mocked the prepper kind of movement circa 10 years ago. Now they're looking pretty darn smart.
I totally agree. I think, like, I read this really good article. There's this guy named, oh man, I'm forgetting his name now. Well, I forgot his name, but he wrote an article called Doomer Optimism that I highly recommend, because he bought into this crap early on. Oh man, I hate that I forget his name. He was like famous for like,
I'm looking it up.
yeah. See if you can find it. Tucker Max.
Tucker.
And
Yeah.
I remember hearing about him. Yeah, I highly recommend reading that article for anybody listening to this or watching this. I think it's a great thing to look at, because this guy, he talks, it's awesome when you see someone, because I got friends who, they lived in New York City or they lived in LA, and so it's easier to get caught up in the hoopla, like when you live there, because everybody around you is bought into it. But this guy had the courage to say, you know what, I was wrong, and I wish more people would be like that. But what he says, which is, I think the prepper mentality, I think it's got to change. The new prepper is someone who's not prepping for this crazy event that's going to be a short-term thing that might get resolved. I think the new prepper is someone who says, I need to prepare for a different way of life forever.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to, of course you need to have, like, simple things like, fire starters, a simple book on edible plants, water filtration, things like that. But then at the same time, you just need to prepare your body and your mind for a different lifestyle. That's the biggest pandemic that there could be, because like people are just not ready. I think the fear is not the actual happening of it, because the actual happening of it, humans are resilient. You see in history, people adjust, but the before and the beginning part, that's where the madness happens, because people are just, they're gonna be so caught off guard. And I'm if you look at the article, he talks about, it's like, listen, rip the Band-Aid off and just assume that, what's the worst that can happen? Someone tells you 2 years from now you're insane. I'd rather be the insane guy than being unprepared. And there's simple things. I look at it this way: even if nothing happens, it's good to be prepared. It's good to teach my kids how to be prepared.
Yeah. As watch Naked and Afraid, you learn a lot, because they
That's really good for the vegans, because all the vegans become carnivores and Naked and Afraid.
yes, it's funny how your worldview changes totally when you are in survival.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, it's a funny world we're living in. And did you ever get 9-1 Divok, by the way?
I got a positive test for that in September of 2020. So I
Okay.
got it early on. We basically we went to Mexico. We went to Mexico 4 times that year, because we've always loved traveling. And that back then, not anymore. Back then, Mexico was like a haven. It was like a place where you could go, even though Florida was always cool. Florida places, I got kicked out of Buffalo Wild Wings. I got kicked out of a few places, but for the most part, if I was at Target and someone said, put on your thing, yeah, and I remember Mauda, someone said it to her. It was like a kid, and he's like, well, why aren't you wearing that? And she's like, why? Why would I do that? And he's like, well, there's a sign. It's like, well, who cares if there's a sign? Like there's all, if they put a sign, it's like what your parents used to say. If everybody jumped off the cliff, would you do that? So we came back from Mexico, and then I flew to Austin to film some stuff with Logan and all those people for BioCoach. And I remember coming back, I was like, shortness of breath, and I was feeling like body aches. And then the second day that I felt body aches, I was like, because the first time I was like, man, did I train that hard? I don't remember training that hard. And then the second day I was like, okay, I didn't train neck. I don't remember training neck. So why is my neck so sore? And then all we did was for 10 days, hit the vitamins hard. Obviously we did the things we were supposed to do. We didn't go anywhere, but I did walk every single day for like 30 minutes. I remember interesting, I had a pulse oximeter, and my oxygen would get down to like 91, 92. And then I would breathe intentionally for like 2 minutes and it was back up to 98. It's amazing, the connection.
Yes.
It's like how much your mind can make these things worse. And I'm not saying that there's obviously people have gotten very, very sick,
Yeah.
and people have died. But I think number one, having that mentality that number one, just knowing that your body, when your body detoxes, there's gonna be symptoms, and for us, it was like the kids had it for a day. And Dean, my littlest one, he wanted to have no sense of smell, so he said he didn't, but I think he was lying. He just wanted to feel included. But yeah, we had it. Ever since then, we haven't gotten tested, so I wouldn't know if we had it or not. My parents, on Christmas this year, my dad was like, we got positive tests. And I was like, okay. He's like, well, you don't care? I'm like, I want to see you. And besides, if I don't have the current thing, might as well get it over with now. So come on over.
Well, even the Alphabet Soup organization is now saying, "Oh yeah, get it. That's just as good as the hokey pokey." Like
Yeah,
that, Ben. Like, why did it take 2 years to make that declaration to the world?
because it has to be expedient. It has to be, when the damage is done and when you got everything going. I mean, just the amount of things that happened, like the best AI in the world wouldn't be able to figure out which combinations of genes would have a bad reaction.
Yes.
There's just too much variation in our genes. And so, like, to me, that's way scarier. I know just a few genes, like I forget which one it is, GSPT, I think, which is like detoxing heavy metals. And then COMT, I'm like, I've never touched any of that, man, because as it is, I do my sauna daily to detox from any exposure, just from stuff in the air. Forget about things that I don't even know about. They've never been approved, So to me, that's the real risk, is putting things into your body that are altering your DNA. And all of a sudden we got HIV, and it's like.
And to this day, Danny, still under emergency use authorization. Like people wake up.
Still, and they keep going lower and lower with the ages. My concern now, because someone, I think he's on here, Mitch, was asking, have any of those actually gotten the real deal? And I was like, no, but they're going to push to put it on the schedule. And if you put it on the schedule, then it becomes like a de facto approval, because it's like, well, it's on the schedule. There's ways around everything if you really want to break the law, unfortunately.
Well, the pandemonium, I mean, it's all but over. You don't even hear it being talked about. Is what's
Yeah.
going. I mean, I
Praise
don't
God
know.
for that.
Like, all right, what about this was a pandemonium of the unhokey pokey? I mean, that pissed me off to no end, right? But
Oh my gosh.
like, what? That doesn't even make any sense. How are we who are taking care of our bodies and have body autonomy and make this autonomous choice not to put something in our body that we don't feel comfortable with? I haven't gotten it. I haven't gotten 9-1 Divock preemptively in March 2020, just based on what I've known interviewing people for years, Danny. I started taking pretty high dose vitamin D as a prophylactic.
Yeah.
And for a little while until it's built up in my system. I've got robust vitamin D, and then I'm doing all these biohacks that we mentioned earlier. And I'm out and about. I don't wear a face diaper anywhere. I don't do anything to avoid people. I've been at a lot of public events. I recently had my 50th birthday party and had lots of people there and hugged and all the things. Like I'm living life as if there is no pandemonium, and yet there's still people still wearing all the face coverings and still doing all the things. And it's like, is that going to be our life the rest of of our lives?
I think there's it's interesting to see like how much our research on homeschool that we've done forever, because we've always homeschooled, the parallels between what I already knew and now. For example, John Taylor Gatto, he's like our favorite homeschool guy. This guy, for anybody who's interested in learning about homeschool, this guy was New York City, New York State Teacher of the Year. He wrote Weapons of Mass Instructions and Dumbing Us Down, really good books. And he makes this analogy of like, if you put fleas in a bucket, they'll start trying to hop out, right? But if you cover the bucket, then they'll stop. And then you can take the cover off. It's kind of like, you know, tying an elephant, a baby elephant to, you know, a table. So I think that's what's happening with a lot of people. And in that case, I have no ill will to those people. I do have a little bit of pity for them because, you know, if it's like, if they truly believe that, I feel bad. A lot of people don't have the ability to say, you know what, I was wrong. But I still hold no ill will. It's funny because everything that you and I have always talked about has always been, hey guys, we're trying to just tell you the truth. And it's like, usually the people who try to tell the truth are the ones who are attacked. And it's interesting because back in the day, you know, 70s, 80s, 90s, starting with the 60s, you know, it was cool to be anti-establishment. It was cool to question things. Now it's so weird. It's like, it's cool to tell people what they're supposed to do. And I don't know where that happened. It's been a long journey, but like, I wish we could get back to that, because I think that's part of our DNA as Americans, is to like question things. You know, that's why we're like, well, what do you mean disarmament? You know, that's what happened in my home country of Cuba. Like, people were disarmed, and now look at where they are, you know?
Did you go keto and thought you had to give up wine? Well, let me introduce you to Dry Farm Wines. It is the world's first sugar-free alcohol that is lower than your typical wines, organic, made at local farms that do it the right way. Most of the wines that you buy are from 3 really big companies, loaded with additives and preservatives, so many dozens of those kinds of things. You don't want all that junk in your wine. So go to dryfarmwines.com/Jimmy and they will ship you these wines. And just because you listen to this podcast, Dry Farm Wines is going to give you a bottle in your first order for just 1 cent. Go to dryfarmwines.com/Jimmy and you will get your bottle of wine for just 1 singular penny. Go check them out. Dry Farm Wines, you guys. It's wine o'clock somewhere. Let's go get some wine. It is ironic when you like observe things just from like a third party standard and just kind of looking down. The progressives have become conservative and the conservatives have now become progressive. Isn't that?
Yeah. It's very weird. It's very weird how it's all. And unfortunately, the way look, here's a guy, because just to show like how open-minded I am, because I listen to everybody. Everybody has gotten something right at some point or another. This guy, Noam Chomsky, obviously not a fan of Noam Chomsky. He's a socialist, but he was big on the anti-censorship, and he had a quote back in the day talking about how, you know, what's being done is you limit the amount of things that can be discussed, and you allow for vehement disagreement in those. So we always create these like false dichotomies where you're either on this side or you're on this side, and there's no possibility of having. So it's like you buy into this package deal. It's like, well, I agree with that, but I don't agree with that part of the package. Like, can I just take that part out? And you can't. You're not allowed to. So nowadays, I wrote something down because I had a list of things. So the relevant thing is, you know, I usually don't like to listen to what's being argued, because, for example, when you look now, it's so obvious to me. Like when it's like now the newest debate, which was like a few weeks ago or a month ago, was like, well, you can't wear this type of thing. You got to wear the N95, right? And it's like, no one's arguing, should we wear them or not? The argument is what type you should wear. And so when I look at stuff, I'm like, forget about what they're arguing about. What are they all agreeing to? because that's the real issue that we need to look at.
Well, and the craziness is how the rules don't make sense. So last night, as of the recording of this, for those of you listening on the podcast, there was a Brooklyn Nets game, and so
Oh yeah, I heard about this.
New York City has a mandate that in I guess government buildings and other kind of event institutions, you no longer have to have the hokey pokey to get in. But then if you are an employee, which if you're a player on a team, you do have to have it. And so Kyrie Irving, who has very vehemently spoken out against not getting it and actually has had to only play the away games. He can't play the home games. He got to attend a home game for the first time, but he could attend in the stands with a bunch of people that were mixed, both hokey pokey and not hokey pokey. But he couldn't join his teammates on the bench or play in the game, but he's in the same building, breathing the same. It makes no damn sense.
It's crazy. I'm so happy for people like him because let me tell you that you're talking about however many weeks, let's say, I don't know, like the season is like, 4 months, 2 months. How many? 2 months.
It's left in the season now, but yeah, 4 month season, right?
So they get paid weekly. So, think about the amount of dollars that you're not getting paid for just saying certain things, like, and the fines and all that stuff. So kudos to him, man, because like that's really putting your money where your mouth is, because we need people like that. Because, at the same time, you have this machine that is using influencers that are out there on YouTube and all this stuff that are obviously getting incentivized in some way to push an agenda, and they get paid. And then the other side is just pushing back and they get disincentivized to do that. So I really love to see people like that, because for me, it's hurt business. And I've had to I'm like, well, I'm not going to touch this because, this thing, if I keep on doing this, it's not going to change minds. But I think by now, because of everything I did in 2020 and 2021, I think by now people know where I stand. And unfortunately, like you said, we've moved on and people have gotten a nice little, the ability to kind of move away without repenting because, for what they said or what they did or what people believed. Good for them. Save face. I don't care, because as long as we can go back to some sort of normalcy, even though I'm very skeptical, I'm very cynical about all this stuff. I'm always like, what's the next thing to happen? So,
Well, and from our perspective, if you've learned nothing from the last 2 years, you guys learn that cognitive skills are required more now than ever before. Danny, I think that's been the most disheartening thing. I've always considered myself a pretty good thinker, but the last 2 years really makes you refine those skills and question everything. If we're not questioning, what's the point? Why are we here?
yeah, I love it, man. Let me tell you, I love learning. I love being wrong. I think that's where science has gone from a process to a religion.
Yes.
Anybody who actually does the scientific method is frowned upon because science has become a big capital S. And all of what science is in the mainstream now can be summed up in what's being done is, I remember when I was in in grad school and I was looking at levels of evidence, right? Like evidence-based medicine. And the gold standard was double-blind, placebo-controlled,
Randomized.
randomized study. And the lowest level was expert opinion. And so
Yes.
that's literally flipped. Expert opinion is now the science. It's like, what does the science say? And our epistemology, like how we know things, is data driven. It's now, what does the data say? And data is not good because data can be manipulated. What is observation versus data? That's the problem, because now it's this big machine.
And I would add all the experts, because William Fentz has gotten a lot of play with his opinion as a supposed expert, and he's a computer software guy.
Yeah, it's so weird how on one level you can completely discount what people who are either MDs or PhDs or MD PhDs who are saying No, that's wrong. That's completely absurd. Yet you hold up because it really isn't. At the end of the day, it really isn't science as we know it. It's the change of because I think everything is heading in that direction where data, is now data is king. Like where you can basically say, well, this is what the data says. Just what, Jimmy, I was a victim of this, man. I was in pharma for 3 years. I was in medical device for like 10 years. And I remember having conversations in the lunchroom when I was having lunch with doctors, and it was like, my patients keep telling me that they're experiencing this, but I'm like, no, that's nonsense. Stop reading the internet because look at what the data says. And I believed it because I would read the data and I was like, look at this study, look at what it says. And you're completely forgetting what human experience is telling you because, anecdotes, but unfortunately anecdotes are all we have because we don't, the way studies are designed, the way things are funded is all not to find out what's effective and what's safe. It's just to kind of do the little dance so we can keep the machine going and keep the dollars coming in. And I know that's cynical, but I think people should really think about that.
Danny, this has been a fascinating conversation. Before I let you go, tell me how you, your family, and you mentioned her a few times. Mauda is an amazing wife to you, an amazing mom to those boys of yours. How are you guys living adjacent in this crazy time?
Oh man, I love it. Number one is having conversations with our sons. Like the one risk that we have nowadays because of everything going on is we have conversations a lot. I have to tell my boys, listen, don't be talking about this with your friends. They're surrounded by people who don't understand. And so while we like to kind of share alternative views on stuff with them, because we need to make sure that they understand how to think about things differently. We don't want them to go out there and proselytize because number one, they just don't know enough. And so if you just go out there and proselytize and you don't know enough, you're going to look foolish. So from that point of view, having those conversations, of course, we've always homeschooled. So we do things that way. Living adjacent to me is like, number one, we haven't had cable for like 4 years. So even before this, we turned off the cable. We don't really look at that. 2 years for you?
I
Yeah.
cut. I don't even turn on a TV. The only reason I would turn on TV is to watch reruns of Big Bang Theory if I need like an escape,
Yeah.
mentally a little bit. But that's it.
Yeah. We find ourselves like if we watch TV, like we like to watch things like Little House on the Prairie and things like that. um, of course, like just having an environment where everyone in the house is healthy. We don't have. I'm a little bit more strict than Maura is, but basically, with our boys, as far as diet goes, and this is an important part of it because you want to be healthy. My goal is not to get them to eat perfectly like I do, although they do most of the time. So if they, for example, the boys they're outside all the time, all the time. Right now, Desmond's at the beach. Maura's with Dean at Busch Gardens. So like they're always outside. They don't have, we don't have any type of video game systems. No disrespect to anybody, but in my house, it's just not the, we think that's it's such a distraction and it's really really addictive. um so as far as health goes, when it comes to food, I don't ban things. We have non-negotiables of things that we'll never buy. But for example, like a few weeks back, they did a lemonade stand. 6 kids, they made $24, so they got $4 each. Desmond and Dean walked their butts over to the Walmart and bought a ton of candy each. Imagine $4 of candy each, and they just went crazy. They felt like crap after because they never eat that way. So my goal is not to get them to eat perfectly like us, although they do most of the time. My main goal is make sure that they understand that if something were to go wrong, which if it does, they already know this, it's not to run straight to medicine. It's to figure out like, what can I change in my diet? What can I change in my lifestyle? Yeah.
Or Dad, give me a spear so I can go kill an animal.
Yeah. Lots of hiking, lots of outdoor stuff. One thing that we've done for the past 3 months that has been like an anchor for us is we've been keeping the Sabbath, which is awesome. Friday night to Saturday night, we turn off everything. We don't do it for like a legalistic purpose. We do it because it's a blessing. And like, it's been amazing because we connect better as a family. We have 1 day a week at least where we're really going to be close. So I think that's key, because like, I think it's going to change now because people are going to probably be forced to downsize because of, you know, how bad things are getting financially. But I've noticed this thing with culture where people just, they go into their rooms and you have this house of this whole family where everybody's in their room. And I don't like that idea. You know, I like the idea of being all together. So at the very least on Saturdays, we're together. Other than that, just always learning, you know, like I love to learn. And so for us, a big thing, of course, as you know, has been our faith, really digging in the Bible, because it's amazing how Solomon says it, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. So you see so much of what's happening. It's like you can keep reading through the Bible. I just read through it from October to last week, and I'm starting it over. It's like every time you read it, you can find parallels in what's happening. And so those are the main things, man. Other than that, like not getting caught up in the craziness, you know, like people be intentional about what you let mess with you, you know, because I think that's one of the things. It's like people, you know, you find yourself arguing online. And I'll say one more thing. When you're online, because I've always been like an honor guy. So like I've had to defend people online, like people coming at Robert, for example. I'm like, what the, you know, and things have happened with you in the past that I've had to, you know, and I used to do that, but I don't do it anymore because I realized that in honor culture, like in real life, if someone says something to my face or to my family, I'm going to defend my honor. But I find that online, it's the complete opposite. If you engage, you lose. So that'll rob like a few hours of your day, and all of a sudden you feel like crap for someone you don't even know.
And suck your soul out of you. It's just so draining. Danny, I've come to the same conclusion. You know what I do now? I have fun with them when they make fun of me or whatever. I'll story. I'm like, look at another idiot, you know, and it's just, it's fun. It's just,
Yeah, and I like to say thank you a lot. I like to say thank you very much when people do these things. They don't even know how to react to it.
yes, I'm very kind. And so that also, it disarms them. They're like, wait, you're supposed to be mad, and you're saying thank you. Oh, thank you for the comment. Thanks for being a fan. I always say, thanks for being a big fan. Because if you left a hate comment, you're a big fan.
And you're helping my engagement, because Mauda's going through that with TikTok. She puts on like vegan videos, like, and she put all these videos, and like people just go at her, and it's like, man, this video's blowing up. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. So guys, that's Danny Vega. Go check him out on Instagram, DannyVega.ms. And of course, he's got a nice little link that you can go there to see all about his favorite products and resources and everything about Danny. But Danny, this was fun, bro. It's been way too long since you and I got to talk. Cannot wait to see you and the lovely wife and kids
The
again
kids
someday.
will be there this year, man. We'll be there. So I can't wait to see you in Austin, brother.
Tired of playing the mask game? Me too. That's why I wanted to tell you about the Unmask. This is a breathable, completely breathable. It covers, you can't even see that it's breathable, but it's breathable. Whether you're going on a plane, having to go into a store and wearing this thing, playthemaskgame.com is how you can get this mask. They come in all kinds of colors and everything. In fact, right there, you can see right through it what it is, but when you're wearing it, it does not look like it's anything different, but it's breathable, baby. Playthemaskgame.com.
Have you experienced the dreaded keto flu? Did you know that most of these symptoms are actually due to your body dumping excess electrolytes? This is where Element comes in. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means lots of salt with no sugar. Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited to folks following a keto, low-carb, or paleo diet. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio, 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium with none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. Everyone needs electrolytes, especially those on low-carb diets, or if you practice intermittent or extended fasting, if you're physically active or sweat a lot. Add Element today and see how much better you feel and perform. Use the URL drinklmnt.com/Jimmy.